Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. It may interest you to know. I'm Toni Marcolini. I'm joined by a very special guest today, actress and singer Ilene Graff. Welcome, Ilene.
Thank you, Toni. It's a pleasure to meet you. How's
Oh,
New Jersey?
New Jersey's always New Jersey. It's good, though.
What I love the most about New Jersey is
Tell me.
The Italian food. There is nothing like Jersey Italian food, and we had our favorite restaurants, and we have to get over the bridge, one of these days and go back and get some good food.
Well, you're originally a Brooklyn girl, right? So I'm surprised to hear you say that.
Oh, well, I was born in Brooklyn. I grew up in Queens, but I lived in Manhattan in the 70s, and our families, I still have a lot of family in New York. My husband still has a lot of family in New York. We have a lot of friends in Jersey. So
They're like sister states. We kind of pal around together.
there you go. There you go. The tri-state area, as they say, although I don't do Connecticut very much.
Neither do I. But I want to take you back to, what I think is just a huge moment, in your career. You were in the original production of Grease on Broadway.
I was.
Wow. And that could just blow your mind. I mean, you were Sandy in Grease on Broadway. What was that like?
Well, first of all, I was not the original Sandy. I replaced the original Sandy, so I'm Sandy number 2, but I was still there in the original production. Yes, indeed. And just yesterday, we had what we call a Grease Zoomathon. We've been having these massive Zooms all through the pandemic with the greasers, and sometimes there'll be so many little squares on the screen that you have to go to the second page. Yesterday was a smaller number of people, but it's a tight group, and it started out as a tight group. For many of us, it was either our first or second Broadway show, and we were very young and all in our early 20s. And for many of us, our Grease experience kind of supplanted our high school and college experiences. So I feel, and maybe because we were playing high school students, we just were kind of stupid and goofy and carried on like kids and had a blast. And to this day, we are still a tight group, which I think is amazing and wonderful.
Do you remember, was there a moment where you kind of recognized there's something to the magic happening here? I mean, the Broadway show Grease, the original production. I mean, that's the thing that sets the world on fire with Grease. I mean, ultimately, if that hadn't been successful, I argue you'd never have seen the movie. That's the thing that sparks, that play. So, I mean, was there a moment you felt the magic?
Well, you feel the magic when you go to work and it's packed. And there's just so many people there who want to be there, who want to share that experience. When we did the show originally in the 70s, the 50s were only 20 years ago. So there are people that lived the Grease experience. And now it's, the 50s are like an artifact. Like nobody remembers the 50s except people my age. We remember the 50s. But the magic was the connection in the cast and the connection with the audience. It was a special relationship because the characters were so identifiable. The audience, people all the time would come up to me and say, I was a Sonny, I was a Sandy, I was a this, I was a that, and really mean it. Or my brother stole a car, or we used to go parking in the parking lot. They related to it viscerally, and that was a lot of the magic for us, to be on that Broadway stage and know how strongly we were connecting with ourselves and with the audience.
Sure. You worked with, I believe, Richard Gere, Barry Bostwick, right? They were original Dannies to your Sandy.
Yeah, I wish I had a copy of, I don't have a copy of the book with me in my office. Bad girl. There is a book that just came out called Grease, Tell Me More, and it's available from all the booksellers. And it's the origin story of Grease. And Toni, I know you would love it. You would just love this book. It's the stories of how Grease started, starting from a community theater in Chicago, how it moved to off-Broadway, how it moved to Broadway, and we all submitted stories to be included in the book. And when the book came out, we're all looking through, oh, did I make the cut? Did my story make the cut? And one of my stories that is in the book are about All My Dannies, which sort of sounds like the name of a soap opera in retrospect.
Yeah.
But it's about exactly what you're talking about. All that I did the show with like 10, 11, 12 Dannies, including Richard Gere and Barry Bostwick and Jeff Conaway and Treat Williams and Greg Evigan and Philip Kazanoff. I mean, the list goes on, and they were all
Amazing.
unique and different and delicious.
I imagine that's true. I mean, and Jeff Conaway goes on to play, he was in the movie too after that.
Yeah, and he didn't play his role.
Right.
John Travolta, who in the show was Duty, the kind of young, goofy, little guitar player, he became like this big superstar. So he got the lead in the movie. And Jeff Conaway, who played Danny on Broadway for a long time, ended up playing Connick, a whole other role. But I'll tell you, it was so much fun going to the movie and seeing so many of our friends in it. I think it was the first movie I ever went to where I knew so many people in the movie, because a lot of the people had done the show. So it was great.
So was John Travolta actually in the play too?
Yeah, he was.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he was in the first national tour, playing Duty, which is the character that sings Magic Changes, which is not really in the movie, but it's a big number in the stage show. And in between him leaving Greece, and he would come into the Broadway show every once in a while. If somebody was going out on vacation, they would bring him in to play his role, which happens a lot with a lot of shows. If there's a national tour, they'll bring in somebody who knows it already and they can go on it and it's easy. But in between his leaving Greece and the movie of Greece, he had become a big star.
Yeah.
So
welcome back, Cotter, right?
Cotter, and so he got the lead in the movie, and we were excited for him because he was a sweetie pie.
Oh, that's an amazing experience you had.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's so many things I want to get to, because you've led such an illustrious career. I almost didn't know where to begin, but I wanted to start there because I'm a big Broadway fan, and you've done a significant amount of Broadway in some great shows. So let's talk about Mr. Belvedere. Right, I have to talk about that because you have a lot of fans from the sitcom, and I remember watching it myself. It was a very funny show. Do you remember the first day on set for that show?
That's such a good question. No, I don't. I don't remember the first day.
That's
and
fair.
Now I feel bad that I don't remember the first day. I remember the audition process really well. That was, I think you'll find that if you talk to a lot of actors, the jobs that were the easiest to get were the best jobs, because you walked into the audition situation and you ticked off a box and they said, oh, right, she's right for this role, good. So that's kind of what happened with Mr. Belvedere. I had an audition and I had like a callback or two, and then I went to what we called network, which is where you go to the network building, in our case it's ABC, and you have to audition for the people that run the network. So that's a little nerve-wracking, and at that point it's down to usually two people, you and somebody else who are up for the role. But at network day was the day that I first met Bob Uecker.
Right.
And that was the day that I saw Chris Hewitt. Now, Chris and I had worked together in New York. He had directed me in a musical in New York. So Christopher Hewitt played Mr. Belvedere. We were so happy to see each other there at this high stakes audition. I think we gave each other strength and courage and said, we said to each other, we have to get this job so that we can be together. And
I love that.
And we did. My network audition went really well. Uecker and I hit it off from the get-go.
So you had the chemistry on your side. Chemistry.
We did. And so it was a very pleasant, nice audition experience, which is I've had some that were not so pleasant and fabulous and didn't get the jobs. So this was great. And we started out with a short order, just with a half a season order. So our first episodes were kind of, again, high stakes. You know, we had to do well, and then we were established, and we kept coming back year after year.
Well, you had some great episodes. I mean, you got to work with Rosemary, right? The iconic
Yeah,
comedian
yeah.
actress from the Dick Van Dyke Show. What was that like?
You know, that was an extraordinary episode. I played two characters who looked alike, and I played myself, Marcia, and then a bad guy who got a who needed to be arrested, but they arrested me instead. I mean, welcome to sitcom land, right? So
Right,
I'm in jail
right.
with Rosemary and Barbara Billingsley and Zelda Rubinstein, who was in oh, what was the name of that movie? It'll come to me. And we it it was the silliest, most fun episode. We sang Do Re Mi. We had all this jailhouse stuff, and Rosemary was just great. And I'd see her frequently over the years after that, and you know, I've always think people aren't going to remember me. And whenever I would see her, I would say, "Do you remember you were a guest on Mr. Belvedere?" And finally, at one point, she said, "You have to stop asking me that. I know you. I know who you are. Yes, we had fun. Enough. You're Eileen. I know." But you know, when you're dealing with someone, a star of that magnitude, you're sure they never are going to remember you. And she was great. She's so funny.
Oh yeah, she's great. I mean, I just couldn't help feel, and I remember the episode when it aired originally, but and just thinking about it, I was like, I have to mention that because that had to be a big moment. You know, you're going along, you're doing your show, but she's kind of, you know, huge to come in from the Dick Van Dyke Show, such a major show, and you know, she was iconic
Yeah.
comedian.
Yeah.
You also had Robert Goulet on the show,
We did.
right?
That was again like crazy fun.
You got to sing with him, I think.
I got
Yeah.
to sing with Robert Goulet, and my husband was on camp. My husband, Ben Lanzarone, is a composer and a musical director.
Right.
And
Right.
so Ben is playing the piano for us with Robert Goulet singing, and they gave him my husband a close up, and it was so much fun. And to be on the stage with him, you know, I felt like I was in Vegas in the 70s. It was great.
Yeah, again, that was another one I thought had to be exciting. I think when you're on sitcoms, you do have this unique opportunity, right, to have guests from all different other genres in the entertainment field kind of pop in. And so, I mean, I think it's got to be great in and of itself to have that level of community with you, you know, to go back every week, have a new episode and develop a community with your other fellow actors and actresses. But then to have a guest come in like this of high magnitude, I would think that's a pretty amazing feeling.
Well, the ultimate example of that is our baseball episode, where we had a a cast full of Hall of Famers. George, I don't remember the plot exactly, but we were out at a ball field, and it had something to do with Bob Uecker's character in baseball. I have to go back and look at the plot. I don't remember it, but we're out on a baseball field, and they're playing baseball, and we're with Reggie Jackson and Harlan Killebrew and Mickey Mantle, and it was insane. We just kept saying, look at these people that we have the honor of being with today, and we have a great picture of all of us. I've got, the whole cast and all the baseball guys, and oh, it was mind blowing that day.
Oh yeah, that had to be. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So is that your most memorable moment, you think, on the show? Or do you have another moment that's like forever etched in your head as like your most memorable moment filming that show?
Well, I think that episode was huge. The Goulet episode was huge for me, but I think our most important episode was in our very first season, and that was our episode about AIDS.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It was, people make fun sometimes of what they call very special episodes, but very special episodes are important in that they give out information from some of your trusted TV characters. So we did one of the first TV, if not the first sitcom episode about AIDS, where Wesley, Bryce Beckham, has a friend who has gotten AIDS as a result of a blood transfusion. And here's this sweet little boy, and that was before we had all the treatments and all the things that we do. And we were giving out information about what AIDS is and that it can happen to anybody, and we all have to be careful and we all have to be kind to each other. So doing that episode, I think it was special and unique, and I'm happy that we were able to do that.
Wow, agreed. Especially as you said, timely, right? It was probably towards the beginning of the crisis,
Yeah.
and to be able to reach out and have such a wide audience, and do something like that matters. That's a great thing.
Especially at that time where people were being discriminated against horribly for
Yeah.
having AIDS. I mean, it was insane. Children weren't being allowed to go to school. Teachers were being fired. I mean, the list of discriminatory practices around at the beginning, and this was mid 80s, was heartbreaking. And what we wanted to show was that you're not going to get AIDS from sitting next to somebody in a classroom. So let's just calm down, everyone, and zoom in on the important facts about this issue, and let's get cracking on treatments so that people don't have to die anymore.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said.
Thank you.
So can I ask a little bit about, you did for ABC and Disney, right? You worked with South Pacific, you did South Pacific, and you worked with Glenn Close and Harry Connick Jr. To do that. Now, if you know anything about me, I'm totally obsessed with Harry Connick Jr.
Oh, I didn't know.
I'm totally obsessed with Harry Connick Jr. So I have to ask you, what was that like to work with him?
Oh, he was one of the gang. He was no star stuff. He just was Harry. And I'm sitting here, I'm going for a coffee. You want coffee? Yeah, thank you. Get me a coffee. Just a plain guy who happened to be Harry Connick Jr. And he and Glenn Close, of course, working with Glenn Close, give me a break, talk about intimidating. And she never wanted to be intimidating, but Glenn Close, right? Again, just a regular girl. She invited us over to her place for dinner, and she's loading the dishwasher. It's like super. But Harry and Glenn took all of the principal cast. They rented a boat for us one day so we could all go snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef, and come take a ride. We're going to go get hamburgers. Just regular guy, but really talented. And the day, well, since you're a musical, you like musicals, and you probably know South Pacific, and one of the most important themes of South Pacific, again, is prejudice. And Harry's big song in that show is called "You've Got to Be Carefully Taught," which is about how we are not born to be prejudiced. We learn it through our lives, through our parents, through our communities. We learn it. And Harry's character falls in love with an Asian girl, and there are people that just can't accept that. And the day that he was shooting You've Got to Be Carefully Taught, everybody came to watch. And that's very rare. If you have a day that you're not on set, you don't go. You stay back, you do your laundry, you pay your bills. But it was like, oh, he's doing the song tomorrow. So we all came and we watched him do that song, and it was so beautiful and so heartfelt and so honest and sincere. It was really a highlight day, and it was a day that I wasn't even working, but it was a highlight day. Certainly, I'm sure, for Harry.
Oh, what an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to see, I've seen him in concert, and I also saw him in a Pajama Game on Broadway.
Oh,
Yeah, I remember, it was very hard to get tickets for it. And I wound up getting tickets, I think, Memorial Day weekend because most people were going away. Right. So I was able to get tickets and I was like in the front row. And he came out and was like standing right where like I could have untied his sneaker if I wanted to. And I just remember like my mouth just opened and I was like, "Ah." And just being
aw,
frozen. I mean, I'm a big fan. I think he's very talented, right? He can
yes.
sing, he can dance, he can act. I mean,
Yep.
so I
So
figured that had to be a pretty big experience to interact with the two of them at that time. That had to be creatively, I would think that would get your juices even like push you even further.
I think you're right. I had one scene, like big acting scene with Glenn. And I really wanted to do well. I mean, I really did. It's easy to skate along sometimes. You know your shtick, you know what you do. If it's a comedy, I mean, you have your stuff. But this was a new challenge for me, was doing a serious scene with a big movie star. That had never happened to me before. And I really wanted to nail it. And I was a little nervous. And
Sure.
we're hanging out before they're setting up the scene, and she said, "What's the matter with you? You're not like yourself." I said, I'm just a little nervous." And she said, "What are you nervous about?" And I said, "I have to act with Glenn Close." And she just laughed. But that's how I felt. It was like the Glenn Close that was hanging around with everybody and going to dinner and drinking coffee was different from Glenn Close movie star that I had to do a scene with, that I was driving the scene. What I was saying was going to change her character's mind. So it was important. I said, "Oh, I have to act with Glenn Close."
Wow.
That was really funny.
I mean, that leads me naturally into another question I have for you. I really try to focus a lot on the podcast about the creative process because I think your field is so collaborative. And I say this over and over. I mean, there's the writer who puts who creates the paper character, and of course you need a good foundation to start off with. But then there's the actors who get the project and they breathe life into paper, the paper version, of their person, and they give them kind of the nuances that they have or the quirks that they may develop. And then there's of course, the cinematographer, the director who weaves you through the visual storytelling. And then there's the editor, right, who picks the right version. You did 12 takes, who picks the right takes and knows exactly what will look best. And there's so much to it, from the person who selects the music, right? That will be a companion to the movie, before the person who sits in the audience gets to see it. There's been so many hands in the creative process making it what it is. And so I think that every person has to come at it with their own spin, right? You're all, nobody's just, acting like a robot. Everybody is bringing something creatively to the process. So what does the creative process look like for you? I mean, you read a script and you connect to that person. Do you think out in advance how you're going to play something or what you're going to bring to the character? Or is it something that just happens naturally for you? Or is it like I'm in the shower and I'm thinking about the next day and it comes to me what I want to do? Or is it just on the spot?
I think in television, particularly, a lot of it is on the spot. Casting in television is so important. You have to pick the person that matches the story the best. And when I said about ticking off the box,
Yes.
so that if your casting is right, the person that you pick is going to bring their look, their physicality, their life experience to whatever that line is. And in TV, there's really no rehearsing. Rehearsing in TV means what the cameras are going to do, essentially. You get a little bit of rehearsing, yes. And especially if you're working with a director that likes to work with actors, you're going to get a little bit of rehearsing. What are we doing in this scene? What has to happen? What has to accomplish? And there have been scenes that I have done a lot of thinking about beforehand, like the scene I was just mentioning with Glenn. And then there are scenes that I know are just going to happen on the spot. I know that I know what I'm doing. I'm established. I know they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Let's just trust the lines and trust the director to tell us what's needed in this moment. And then your skill and your training and your experience lets you know what you need to do in order to fulfill their vision. Sometimes your vision and their vision doesn't really match. And if you're in a longer term project, like if you're doing a play or something like that, you have a little more time to build and grow and work on this and think about that and all of that. You know, I don't agree with the direction the scene is going. Oh, you don't? All right, well, tell me why. So, all right, so let's try it this way. Then, okay, we'll try it that way. I've found, and maybe I'm being too pragmatic, I don't know, or not artistic enough, possibility, that in film and television more than film, I would imagine, time is money. There's not a lot of time to sit around with 100 well-paid people around you who need to get that on recorded to say, I really think that my vision of this scene is blah, blah, blah. It's like mostly there's no time for that. So you try to get all that work done while you're in makeup, while you're, grab the director. I think maybe, can we try this? Can we try that? Yeah, let's see if we have time to do that. And so your work is done before. It's a combination. It's of course done. You have to go know your lines, know what's your objective. What do I need to accomplish in this scene? You have to know how to hit your spot, how to hit your mark, how to find your light. There's so much technical stuff that goes into it. So that you can get the work done in an expeditious fashion. And if you're doing a one-person show, like on stage, you have all the time in the world to really sink your teeth into it and work on it. And I'm going to try this and what. So I think a lot of it depends on the medium.
Now, when you first read
it, that wasn't too long.
No. I love that. I mean, when you first read a script, do you feel a connect? Like when you decide whether or not you want to take a role, is it that you feel connected to that character in some way?
I think that's a lot of it. Is can you relate to the character? Do you think that what you have will help bring that character to life, as you said, get it off the page and get it on its feet? What is it that you bring? Is it, sometimes it's the story. You go, I love this story. I want to be involved in telling this story. This is a story that I think needs to be told. And if I get to be part of that story, yay. Or if you think it's particularly funny and say, oh my gosh, this is great. I think I would like to do this, but I think a lot of it has to do with, and you can want to do a character and not like that character at all.
Those are probably the best play, right?
That's a lot of the fun. The fun in playing a character that you don't like is finding the stuff inside that character that you can relate to, because we all have a whole bunch of stuff about ourselves that we don't necessarily like.
Well, I interviewed Scott Bryce once, the actor Scott Bryce, and he said his father gave him the best advice when he had to play a villain. He said, you play the villain not believing you're the villain, because villains never think anything they do is wrong.
Of course, no, the villain, you have to be the hero of your own story.
Exactly. So there's a certain, I guess, fun to that.
Oh, there is. Now, I played two characters that, off the top of my head, that were kind of like that. I played a character in a Civil War miniseries who was the nasty Southern belle that just was always getting other people into trouble. Oh, and how much fun was that? To find those bits and pieces of me inside of her. And the other one was on more recently on Heart of Dixie. Which was a series that was on a few years ago, and I played
CW, right?
On the CW, yes. Yeah. And I played the a mother of one of the leading man characters, and I was like again, like a bitchy Southern, she just was awful. But I loved her to death, and I had so much fun playing the world through her, playing her experience through her eyes, you know,
Sure.
figuring out why she was that way, what she was trying to defend, what she wanted for her life and for her son's life. And it was a blast. It was great.
And I mean, you've done so many different parts. I mean, we could be here all day, with your career. As I tried to pick out literally the ones that I thought, you know, let's focus on because they were, different in some way, varied in some way, or you were working with somebody that is iconic. I mean, you had a movie with Rodney Dangerfield. What was that like? I mean, is he funny? Is he funny when the cameras aren't rolling?
He's, yes, in a way, he was kind of quiet. And he makes no mistake over the fact that he was not a particularly happy guy. That's been his whole shtick and his whole career was
Yeah.
that, he gets no respect. And that comes from a deep-seated feeling that he had in reality, which is what makes comedians great, is taking their reality and observing
Sure.
their point of view. But what he had, like I'd never seen before, was the ability to write jokes on the spot. If there was a scene and a joke, the director and the other writers felt wasn't landing, they'd say, Rodney, we need something here. And he could just, off the top of his head, 10 things. This one, the way he talked. And I would just sit in awe of that ability to write jokes so fast that had to do with the scene that we were in at the moment. It was great. I loved that.
You also did something with I can't remember the name of it, but you work with the great Charles Grodin.
Oh, please. Yeah, talk about great. I did it was a wonderful experience. We did the play Charley's Aunt, and we got to do it live as a play in the theater in La Mirada, and star-studded cast. It was amazing. And then it was recorded for broadcast. So we all got to use all of our chops. We all had done a lot of stage work. So we got to be in the play version. And then we got to use our film chops, dealing with cameras and all of that, which is slightly different. And Grodin was so smart, so curious, so funny and dry. He would be a guy that you could have a conversation with and you would just be laughing because he wasn't over the top. He wasn't like loud or anything, but he was so smart.
Witty, right? Witty. He looks like he'd
Witty,
be witty. He looked like he'd be witty.
witty, and so much fun to be with. And I loved watching him work and finding the bits and finding the moments. He was a real worker. I liked him very much.
You've had, I mean, wow, such amazing opportunities. I think, over the course of your career, you've worked with, so many major performers, and you've been in such significant body of work. And this may be an unfair question, but do you, I'm going to ask it anyway, but do you have a favorite project of all time?
Um, I I think, in all fairness, I have to say that Mr. Belvedere was really my favorite 5.5 years of work. It was a true, as you use the word, community of players and crew and staff and writers who were all united in the goal of presenting 22 minutes of pleasure for an audience. That was our job. Our job was to come in every day and be funny and be charming and be kind and be smart, and that's an experience. I'd had wonderful jobs before, but to have that sustained over years with the same people that we're still friends with today, was
Sure, you
so
did. Yeah, you did a virtual reunion recently, right? With everybody
did.
from Belvedere.
During,
Yeah.
yeah, during the pandemic, we got the cast together. We did it as a benefit for what is now called the Entertainment Community Fund, which used to be called the Actors Fund. And oh yeah, it was fun. And we see each other. We speak on the phone. It's me and the kids. It's lovely. So that was it was the biggest thing in my career, and it really was my favorite thing. I did a lot of stuff that I loved doing. I loved getting the opportunity to create a role in an original Broadway musical, which for a lot of actors, that's really high on the list of things you want to cross off what I've accomplished. So the name of the show was I Love My Wife, and
Mm.
um, to get to create a role in an original Broadway musical was so every day I would like pinch myself and say, is this happening? Is this really happening? And to this day, I look back on it and say, good for you. Look what good for you. You're on the original cast album, and to this day, people still say, oh, I love that show. I loved your song. So that I would have to say also was a major favorite thing.
Well, I think, your profession is unique and I think underrated. And I've said this before in a lot of ways because you never know, you truly are meeting your audience where they are in their life. And often people are going through stuff, right? They're going through stress. They're in recovery. They're going through chemo. They're going through things in their life and they need that, right? I mean, most of my audience knows, I'm a cancer survivor. And when I was going through my cancer journey, I needed that. I needed to watch something funny or be connected to see there was still joy in the world, and to have some place to just not be thinking about what else was going on. And I think, that's why I think it's underrated because you do offer this escape, if you will, or this place to go to just hang out and be happy for a little while or to forget maybe what else is going on in your life. And I think that's just invaluable.
I think what you said in your first sentence was really very smart. You're meeting your audience at a point in their life. And that comes home to me all the time when people, it happens all the time. People will come up to me and say, and our show was on a long time ago, so our audience is now well grown up and able to look back on their lives. Will say, you don't understand how important your show was to me. It was on every day when I came home from school. You helped raise me. And every time I hear that, I'm just a puddle. And because I didn't come from a family where anybody else needed to raise me. That wasn't my experience. We recently met a guy who said he was shuttled from foster home to care facility to whatever when he was a kid. But one thing he knew was always going to be on at 3:30 in the afternoon was Mr. Belvedere. And that nice mom and dad were going to be there. And he could put himself in that family and feel safe for a half hour. What an honor. What an absolute honor and responsibility to know that that's the kind of impact that a little half-hour family comedy can have. And that's why we always strove to do our best. And you're so right, Toni, during the pandemic, the Entertainment Community Fund, I keep coming back to that because I'm very active in it. We raise money for people in the arts and entertainment. So anybody who's in arts and entertainment can come to the Actors Fund if they need help, if they need to find health insurance or affordable housing or money to pay the rent. I mean, the services are mind-boggling. And during the pandemic, we raised more money than ever before because of that exact thing you were talking about. People finally understood that they needed us in their lives to help make the time go by, to help make it be less painful, to find a way of escaping. They realized that there are people that do that work. And we need to support them in order to provide our product to help everybody else feel better.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. That's why I said I think it's undervalued. for the benefit it does give society.
Yeah. Thank you. And now you do it too. I mean, you've got a podcast, so now you're a broadcaster. So you understand on a different level that the work that you do, the homework you do before you come in to do a podcast, the research that you have to do, what do I want to talk about? How am I going to reach my audience? I know I've got people, and you mentioned I did my research on you. So I know about your cancer journey. And as the child of two parents who died of cancer, this is something I'm very, very interested in, and how hard it is. And you now have a responsibility to help people like you and a whole bunch of other people who aren't like you. So it's a lot that you understand now on a different level than you probably did when you were being an attorney.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, I just enjoy the conversations, right? This is incredibly cool. I get to meet like longtime celebrities and have conversations about really cool stuff. So I don't know how much trouble this is for me, but thank you. That's a nice thing to say. But I would be remiss, though, if I didn't just touch upon some of the guest appearances you made on TV shows like Mork and Mindy, right? With Pam Dawber and oh, why am I not remembering? Robin Williams.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that had to be some opportunity back at the really the beginning of his career. That role really launches him, and you made an appearance on his show. What was that like in the beginning?
Oh my gosh, he was in a class by himself. There was everybody else who's great and fabulous and wonderful, and then there was Robin Williams, who the mind and I can't even imagine how his mind worked, that it was so fast and so funny and so smart. And he was so kind. He was such a good acting partner. When it was your turn, you had all of his attention. He wasn't like off in the ether thinking about what am I going to do next. No. He was a trained actor, and he knew how to do Robin Williams, and he knew how to do acting partner. And my gosh, it was so much fun. I did 3 episodes of Mork and Mindy, and each one so much fun. I got to be a robot who blew up the set. I mean, come on,
not many people could say that.
To do that.
Yeah, not many people could say that. I think you were on Laverne and Shirley. I think. Am I right?
You are right. Again,
Yes.
Another phenomenal week. People said, oh, there's a lot of tension on that set. Penny and Cindy don't get along and all this stuff. I walked in there and it was so much fun. Mostly I was with David and Michael, who played Lenny and Squiggy. And I was the girl on an episode of The Dating Game that Lenny and Squiggy go on. So, and antics ensue. And my gosh, it was so much fun. I felt like I shouldn't have gotten paid that week, but I'm glad I did.
Again, I mean, these shows are, I mean, wow, like lifetime achievement kind of shows. The fact that you were able to be a part of all these different sets and have these opportunities. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, speaking of game shows, you've done your share of game shows too.
Well,
right? Yeah. I mean,
I think that was one of the best perks about being on a hit TV series, is that you got to be on the game shows.
And you were good.
I loved being on the game shows. We made lifelong friends, oddly enough, from the game shows. We still play with a group of people who are now producing game shows themselves, who started out as game show fans and are now like big shots in the game show business. And we have game show parties. And so it was special. And yeah, I love doing that.
Did you feel competitive? Did it bring out like competitive? Did you
of course.
Like, let's get this, let's do this?
Please. Yes. I mean, you start answering questions, and it's like, I played opposite people who were my friends, and it was like, too bad. I don't care. I'm going to grind you in the dust.
I would think, right? I would think like eventually it gets to the point where it brings out a little competition. Like, let's do this.
Yeah. And some of it has to do with you want to earn money for your contestant.
Sure.
So I wanted to get in the winner's circle so that I could make more money for my contestant. You know, I'm going to make the same amount of money. It doesn't matter to me. But if I do well, not only do I look good, but they get to make money. So that was
Sure.
great.
And some of them really had stories, right? I mean, again, talking about responsibilities, right? Some of them would come on and they'd have a really significant reason for needing the money, for needing a boost in their life or something going on.
Well,
And I would think,
yeah,
yeah,
I never had anybody tell me a sad story, and the shows that I didn't talk about that on the air, but I did do well with one contestant, and she won $10,000. And back, in the 80s, that was a lot of money. And after the show was over, she said, I just want to thank you. I have never had $10,000 at one time in my life, and this is going to help me so much. I was like, oh my God, you're welcome. What can you say? Wow, it was a great thing to do for somebody.
yeah, it's life changing. And some of those were fun. And I guess I wondered behind the scenes if there was a sense of competition, like when was it all just, oh, the camera's on, so let's do it. It's fun. Or, you actually start wanting to really win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. You don't belong there if you don't want to win.
I love that. So I mean, I have to get to this before I can let you go. You're Grammy nominated, right? For an album, really a lullabies. Can you tell the story of how that album came about? It's a beautiful story. I know it already, but tell it.
And you say you don't do research. Ha ha. So, yeah, it's called Baby's Broadway Lullabies. And when my daughter was a baby, obviously, I used to sing her lullabies. And the only songs I knew show tunes. That's what I knew. So I would sing her these lullabies of Broadway show tunes that I would just sort of slow down. Like if there was a song, lullaby Broadway, I just for the baby. And then I said to my husband, we should do something with this. This is nice. I like how these songs sound slow like lullabies. So we did. We put together a whole CD's worth of these Broadway show tunes, completely rearranged as lullabies. And happily enough, that year we got nominated for a Grammy. So yeah, nice to have a nice little reward for a family project.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, right?
Thank
So
you. Yeah.
yeah, I actually have it. It's beautiful. What a lovely job you guys did with it. And I mean, I highly recommend it. Do you consider yourself a singer or an actress? What do you how do you think of yourself or classify yourself?
I'm, in all honesty, I think of myself as a singer who became an actor. I've been singing professionally since my dad was a singer, and he used to hire me for stuff when I was a kid. And I've just always thought of myself as a singer. And the acting didn't come into it until college, really, my last year of high school and then college. And it just was, to become a singer was very daunting to me. When I was coming of age, it was the era of singer-songwriters and people who could play for themselves and all that, and that wasn't me. I didn't know how to navigate that, but I did know how to go to an audition for a show. So that's sort of how that happened. But in my heart, I still feel like I'm a singer who got into acting.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I mean, I find that with a lot of the people I talk to, right?
Oh yeah.
Even though they do one or two, even though they do two or three things, right, in their career, and they get good at those things, in their heart, they're one or the other, right? I mean, I've had people who go on to successful acting careers who tell me, I feel like a writer, right? They started off as writing, they wind up in the field where they perform and they have great careers as a performer, but in their heart they're still that writer. I mean, it's just amazing to me. But there's always, even people who do multi things successful, I sing, I act, I write, there's always one thing that they really think of themselves as.
That's really interesting. I didn't really know that. I know it about myself, so I guess I should know it about other people. But that's good to know.
So tell me, now, is there some new project that you're working on that you want to talk about?
Well, I'm going to be doing I do a holiday show, like a live cabaret concert kind of holiday show. That'll be coming up in December in New York at Feinstein's 54 Below. We
Oh
were
my
supposed to do
goodness.
it last year, but the day of our show, after our rehearsal at the club, they said you can't do your show, there's COVID. So our show was canceled day of, and it was very sad, very, very sad. We'd just done it here in LA and we were getting ready to do it in New York. So we've rebooked, keeping fingers crossed that we can do it on December 28th, that everybody, who knows, you know, I don't put plans in ink anymore. Everything's in pencil because you think you're
Yeah.
going to do something and someone gets sick and you can't do it. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed and we're going to be prepared and ready to go. And my husband and I also teach. We teach vocal performance, and we've been doing it for years now. A workshop that we teach called Making the Song Your Own, because I believe, and sort of goes back to what we were saying about casting, that everybody brings their life experience to their song interpretation. And we teach in a workshop situation where people get up and work on their song every week. And then we do a showcase. So we've got a showcase coming up here at Feinstein's at Vitello's, which is another Michael Feinstein venue,
Wow.
in September, and then another one in December. So teaching really keeps me busy, and I just love it. I love to teach, and I work with my husband, and he's our musical director. And I think we really enrich people's lives by giving them a place to sing. You know, people that aren't necessarily professionals who've gone on to other careers, but who just love to sing and don't really have an outlet for it. So they come to us and we give them everything we can to help them succeed.
Now, when you're teaching, because that is certainly is its own reward, right? To take somebody who really wants to learn a craft, and feel that moment where you do connect with them, where you feel like you've made a difference, in helping them get better, helping them understand what they're
Yeah.
trying to learn. That has to be pretty rewarding for you when you feel that connection.
It's the best. It's just great because you've done something, you've taught as well. So you not everybody learns the same way. So I can tell somebody, try this,
Not
try this.
everybody wants to learn, right?
Well,
Not everybody
that's
wants to
true
learn. I've had
too.
people in my class that don't want to learn. Yeah.
Well, in my life, people only come to me if they want to because they're not
Right.
required to for anything. It's just something that they want to do. So they're basically interested in what I have to say. But I always say to them, if you're not getting it, if I'm telling you something and you don't understand and you're not accomplishing what I'm asking you to do, it's not your fault. I had not yet found the way to explain it to you. And that really takes a lot of the pressure off the students, that they don't feel untalented or they don't feel stupid. Because I know, when you're a kid in school and the teacher says, I told you a million times that this is how you do this, and you don't get it, and you feel bad. Well, the teacher is just saying the same thing the same way over and over and over again. It's not going to get through to you. It's up to the teacher to find a way to get to the students. So when I find a way to get somebody to understand about the right way to breathe or the right way to exhale or the right way to hit a note, and I say, I got it. I know how you learn. This is how we're going to do it. And I see their eyes light up. I go, this is the best. This is great.
Well, I have to say thank you so much for coming today. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed our conversation, how I was looking forward to it. I have followed your career.
Well, thank you.
I am a big fan. And I hope you'll come back as you continue to do things and talk to me about projects as you're working on them.
I
And
will. And if I can just put in a little plug for my daughter. My
oh,
daughter's
please.
name is Nikka Graff, and she is also a performer. And she is currently, if you have any listeners or watchers in Chicago, she's in Chicago right now in a production of a new musical with songs by Elton John of the movie The Devil Wears Prada. So that's
Wow.
pretty cool and exciting.
That is cool and exciting.
Yeah, they're in previews right now, and they open August the 9th, I think. And we're going to be going in a few weeks to go see her. And so this, the story goes on.
Well, I'm going to put all the links, below the video for you, and we'll get a link out for this show as well, for your daughter's show as well. That's an
Thank
amazing
you.
opportunity, I think, to be in a project like that. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty
Good
cool.
luck. Good luck to
Yeah.
her. Yeah,
Good
you're gonna
luck
be
to
you're gonna be the proud mother right there.
Nothing is more fun than, she's been in a couple of Broadway shows and she's done a lot of regional theater, and, seeing your kid on a Broadway stage in a big musical is, my husband, my husband and I, the first Broadway show she was in, when she comes out on stage, she's in this big show. And when it was over, my husband and I shook hands and said, our work here is done.
Yeah, I like that.
Our professional work, not our parenting work, but the professional work.
There has to be, a great feeling there. I would think that you're connecting on a professional level with your children, right? I mean, so many people don't, right? The kids are not interested in the things they're interested in. So to be able to say that you connect and get each other, or maybe you even inspired her career choices, I think is kind of neat.
I think what you said is really true, that we get each other. There's
Yeah.
never been a time where we didn't get her, and where she was coming from and what she wanted to do. As much as we kept suggesting that she become a pediatrician, that didn't sink in. She just always was talented. There was nothing we could do about it. It was who she was. But she has said to me many times, I'm just so grateful that you always got me, that I didn't have to convince you to let me do something, or that you understood that I couldn't come to this family event or this thing because I was in a show or whatever. I say, oh no, I grew up this way. It was the same thing with my dad, same thing with us. And yeah, you do what you got to do. Just,
That's got to be rewarding for you, rewarding.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
Yes,
so much for
it is.
joining me. This hour flew by, and I really enjoyed getting the opportunity to talk to you. And I know there's plenty of other worthy projects that you've been in. I got to as many as I could, and as
You
many.
did really well.
I tried my best to touch upon it because you have such a body of work that it's like, all right, I'm going to get to what I get to, and then that's all there is to it. So I tried to get to as much as we could, but thank you. You're a very engaging woman to talk to. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, and take good care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Eat right and get plenty of.
Well,